I want you to go back to a moment I think we've all had. You're walking into a room, maybe it's a basement, an old house, maybe just a long, empty hotel corridor late at night.
Mm-hmm.
The air feels, I don't know, heavy. It's quiet, almost too quiet. And then out of nowhere, the hair on your arms just stands up. You get that distinct, absolute feeling that you are not alone.
The sensed presence.
Exactly. You turn around, there's nothing there. But the feeling, it doesn't go away.
It's a phenomenon as old as we are. It's in our folklore, our horror movies, but, more importantly, it's in the data.
The heebie-jeebies, the creeps,
Yeah.
whatever you call it. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not telling ghost stories. We're taking a stack of research papers on acoustical engineering, neuroscience, evolutionary biology to figure out why this happens.
And it's such a fascinating collision of two worlds, really. On one side, you have the physics, these invisible forces in the environment that can physically manipulate your biology.
Yeah. And on the other side, you have the psychology, the way your brain essentially, hallucinates reality when the lights go out.
Right.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. Is haunting a glitch in the environment, or is it a glitch in us? And to start, we have to talk about a man named Vic Tandy and a sword that wouldn't stop vibrating.
This is such a great detective story. It really anchors the whole physics side of the argument. So Vic Tandy, he was an engineer. He was working at a medical equipment manufacturing facility in England. This was back in the 1990s.
And just to set the scene, this wasn't some spooky old castle.
No, not at all. It was a functional, modern lab.
Yeah.
But the staff there, they complained about it constantly, specifically about this one area, a cleaning day at one end of the building. It was a narrow room, about 10 feet wide and 30 feet long.
And people just hated working there.
Hated it. They reported feeling depressed, cold. They'd get the shivers. The cleaning staff even claimed they saw, figures in the shadows. Sometimes they just refused to go in alone.
Which has all the classic hallmarks of a haunting. I mean, even Tandy, who was a total skeptic, a man of science.
Oh, absolutely. He admitted he didn't like being in there. So one night he's working late and he starts feeling cold, sweating. He feels this wave of depression just wash over him. And then out of the corner of his eye, he sees something.
A gray, amorphous figure.
Exactly. Just sort of sitting there in his peripheral vision.
Which is terrifying. But being an engineer, he doesn't run away screaming. He turns his head to look directly at it.
And this is the key moment. When he turned to look at it,
it vanished.
It was gone.
So he goes home, probably questioning his sanity. But the next day, the engineer in him takes over. And this is the detail I love. He was a competitive fencer, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. So he brings his fencing foil, his sword into the lab to do some maintenance on it. He clamps the handle in a vise, so the blade is just sticking out horizontally.
Right.
He walks away to get some oil, and when he comes back, the blade is vibrating.
Not just vibrating, frantically.
Right, frantically vibrating up and down. Now, metal just doesn't dance on its own. Tandy knew that for the blade to vibrate like that, some kind of energy had to be getting fed into it.
And since nothing was touching it,
that energy had to be sound, but not a sound he could hear.
Infrasound.
Exactly. Infrasound. Sound is a wave, right? High pitch, high frequency, low pitch, low frequency. Human hearing usually bottoms out around 20 hertz, so 20 cycles per second. Anything below that?
You can't hear it, but it's still there. It can still carry physical force.
It can. So Tandy does the math. He measures the room, remember 30 feet long, and he realizes the room's dimensions are perfect. They fit the wavelength of a very specific low frequency sound. It's creating a standing wave.
Okay, what's a standing wave?
Imagine a wave in a bathtub sloshing back and forth. If you get the timing just right, the wave doesn't really travel. It just builds up higher and higher in the same spot. That's a standing wave. So Tandy calculated the frequency needed to create that effect in a 30-foot room, and it came out to roughly 19 hertz.
And when he actually measured the sound in the room,
it was peaking at 18.98 hertz.
Wow. That is incredibly precise.
It is. He traced the source to a new extractor fan they just installed at the end of the corridor. The fan was vibrating, the room was amplifying it like a giant invisible organ pipe, and the fencing foil was just caught right in the middle of it.
Okay, so Mystery of the vibrating sword is solved, but a vibrating sword is not a ghost. Why was he seeing a gray figure, and why was everyone feeling depressed and cold?
This is the detail that connects the physics to the biology. Tandy digs up this old NASA technical report from 1977, and it turns out the human body is, well, it's just a collection of physical objects, and those objects have resonant frequencies too.
Meaning there's a specific pitch that will make your body parts vibrate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the resonant frequency of the human eyeball is roughly 18 hertz.
You're kidding. So the sound wave in the room wasn't just shaking the sword?
It was shaking his actual eyeballs.
No way.
Yes. It was causing what he called a smearing of his vision. The gray figure wasn't a ghost. It was likely an optical illusion caused by his retinas vibrating inside his head.
So when he turned to look directly at it,
the muscles in his eye tightened, which changed the resonant frequency just enough, and the ghost vanished.
That explains the visual part. But what about the fear, the dread, and the sweating?
That's where infrasound gets even more potent. We have data referenced in the Parsons paper and others showing that whole body vibration at these very low frequencies can trigger hyperventilation.
It's basically a panic attack.
It is. It changes your respiratory rhythm. You start breathing shallowly, your carbon dioxide levels drop, and your body enters a physiological state of fear. You feel this intense dread, but you have absolutely no idea why.
So let's just recap the Tandy effect. You're sitting in a room, a fan you can't hear is creating a standing wave. Your eyes are vibrating, so you're seeing gray blobs in your peripheral vision. Your lungs are vibrating, so you feel like you're having a panic attack. And
your brain, trying to make any sense of this, says there is a ghost in the room.
It's a really compelling explanation. I mean, it wraps it all up so neatly, but...
Here comes the but.
Well, we have to look at the broader context. We have a paper in the stack by Stephen Parsons, Infrasound and the Paranormal. And he takes a more critical look at this. He points out that while Tandy's discovery was brilliant, infrasound isn't some kind of magic ghost button.
And that's a fair critique, because if 19 hertz always caused ghosts, then every time a large truck drove by your house, you'd see a Victorian lady in your hallway.
Exactly. Infrasound is everywhere. Storms generate it, heavy traffic, wind hitting a building.
Parsons brings up the Haunt Project, which was a study led by Christopher French. They actually tried to replicate the Tandy effect. They built a room and blasted people with 18.9 hertz infrasound just to see what would happen.
And did they see ghosts?
Generally, no. They got reports of dizziness, sure. Some felt a sense of presence. Some even felt terror. But they didn't reliably have the very specific visual hallucinations that Tandy described.
So the eyeball vibration thing, that might require a perfect storm of conditions, the right lighting, the right angle, the right intensity.
Exactly. But the feeling.
A feeling is consistent.
The feeling seems to be the consistent part. So infrasound sets the stage. It creates the mood of the haunting, that dread, that physical unease. But it doesn't necessarily create the narrative. It doesn't put the ghost in the room.
For that, we have to leave the physics lab and go inside the human brain.
Correct. We need to talk about the predictive processing model. This is a huge shift in how we understand perception.
Okay, let's unpack this, because even if the air conditioning is vibrating my eyeballs, my brain still has to interpret that signal.
Right. We tend to think of our brains as cameras. We think we open our eyes and just record the world. But neuroscience tells us that's not really true at all. This paper, I think, therefore I hallucinate, argues that the brain is a prediction engine.
So it's just guessing.
It's constantly predicting. I mean, think about it. Your brain is locked in a dark box. Your skull, all it gets are these noisy, messy electrical signals from your eyes and your ears. To make sense of them quickly, it relies on priors, your past experiences, your expectations. It predicts what it should see, and then just checks the incoming data to see if it was right.
So if I'm walking through a forest and I see a coiled shape on the ground, my brain predicts snake before I've even processed the visual detail.
Precisely. And usually that's incredibly helpful. But what happens when you go into a sensory deprivation environment, like say a dark basement?
The data stream gets cut off.
Exactly. The input becomes weak, it becomes noisy. But the brain's prediction engine doesn't just stop, it keeps running. It tries to build a model of reality with totally insufficient data.
This reminds me of all the research comparing the human brain to AI, to large language models.
It's a fantastic comparison. We know that when an AI doesn't have the answer or when the data is fuzzy, it hallucinates. It just makes things up that look plausible to fill the gap.
The paper called it the art of being wrong. The AI isn't broken, it's just trying to bridge an information gap.
And our brains do the exact same thing. In the dark, your brain is asking, what is in that corner? It has no visual data. But if you are primed to be afraid, maybe because of that infrasound causing physiological dread, your brain predicts a threat. It hallucinates a presence.
So the ghost is basically an autocomplete error in the brain.
In a way, yes. It's a trade-off for intelligence. A system that can predict the future and imagine possibilities is also, by definition, a system that can create things that aren't there.
This leads to something I found really surprising in the source stack. We had this article from Discover magazine about who is most likely to actually feel this sensed presence.
This is one of those counterintuitive findings that I just love.
Okay, so if I asked you, who is more likely to see a ghost, you'd probably say the creative person, the daydreamer, the one with the overactive imagination.
That is the logical assumption, yes.
Yeah.
Fantasy-prone people would project their fantasies out onto the world. But the study found the complete opposite.
Right. They put people in a dark, silent room. Some were fantasy-prone, people who get lost in books and movies, and others were more grounded, skeptical types. And the fantasy people felt safer.
It's a fascinating paradox. The theory is that the fantasy-prone people, they have a rich inner world. So when the lights go out, they just retreat into their own minds. They're entertained, they're distracted by their own internal narratives, which they know are internal.
But the people who aren't daydreamers,
they're focused externally. They're monitoring the environment.
They're staring into the dark.
Exactly. They're desperately trying to make sense of this sensory void. Their predictive brain is just scanning for threats. Every creak, every shadow needs an explanation.
Yeah.
And because they can't find one, their brain creates one. There is someone here.
That is wild. So being a skeptic or a grounded person might actually make you more susceptible to the heebie-jeebies because you can't just tune out the environment.
It suggests the sense presence is a result of hypervigilance, not just whimsy. It's the brain trying to solve a puzzle, what is in the dark.
Yeah.
And just getting the answer wrong because it's trying too hard.
But why is our default answer there's a monster and not, oh, it's just the wind? Why are we wired to be so paranoid?
And that brings us to the evolutionary perspective, the smoke detector principle.
This is from Randolph Ness's work. I love this concept because it explains so much of my own anxiety, not just about ghosts.
It's a cost-benefit analysis of fear. So imagine you're a prehistoric human out on the savannah. You hear a rustle in the grass. It might be the wind. It might be a leopard.
Okay. If I assume it's a leopard and I run away, but it's actually just the wind, what have I lost?
A few calories. Maybe you look a little silly in front of your friends. The cost is low. That's a false alarm.
But if I assume it's the wind and it's actually a leopard,
the cost is infinite. You're dead. That is a missed alarm.
So nature designed us to treat every rustle like a leopard.
Exactly. We are the descendants of the paranoid monkeys. The relaxed monkeys who said, oh, it's probably nothing. Well, they got eaten. We inherited a hair trigger detection system.
The Reddit thread we looked at had a great way of putting this. It said our brains have a background app constantly running called Is Something Watching Me?
And that app is glitchy by design. It's calibrated to give false positives because false positives keep you alive. You want your smoke detector to go off when you burn the toast, even though it's annoying, because you'd rather have that than have it fail to go off during a real fire.
But now we live in safe houses. We have locks on the doors. There are no leopards in my basement.
That's the modern mismatch. Our hardware is built for the jungle, but we're living in the suburbs. So when you walk into that dark basement and the infrasound from the boiler makes you feel a little weird and the darkness cuts off your visual data,
My internal smoke detector starts screaming, leopard, predator, ghost.
Even though it's just laundry, it's a false positive machine.
This is where it all comes together for me. It's not just one thing, is it? It's a perfect storm.
Let's synthesize this. You walk into the haunted location. Step 1, physics. Maybe there's an old fan or a wind tunnel effect, creating a 19 hertz standing wave.
You can't hear it, but your eyes start vibrating slightly, creating visual smears. Your lungs start vibrating, causing mild hyperventilation and a feeling of dread.
Step 2, psychology. You're in the dark. Your brain is a prediction engine deprived of data. It feels the physical dread from the infrasound and tries to explain it. It searches its database for invisible threats.
And step 3, evolution. Your ancient survival software kicks in. It decides that the vague shape in the corner must be an agent. It must be a watcher. Because assuming it's a ghost keeps you alert, whereas assuming it's a shadow might get you killed.
And suddenly you have a haunting. It feels incredibly real because every system in your body, sensory, cognitive, evolutionary, is conspiring to tell you that it is real.
It really makes you sympathize with people who report these experiences. They're not crazy. Their bodies and brains are just doing exactly what they were designed to do, just in the wrong context.
Absolutely. The feeling of being watched is a feature, not a bug. It's a survival mechanism working overtime.
So what does this all mean for the listener next time they're in a spooky hotel room or a dark basement?
I think it offers a tool for grounding yourself. If you feel that presence, you can check your environment. Is there a fan humming? Is there a window open creating a draft? You can remind yourself, my brain is hallucinating right now because it's trying to protect me.
It takes the power away from the ghost and puts it back into the biology. It turns a supernatural event into a biological checklist.
But here's a provocative thought to leave you with. We've spent this whole time deconstructing the experience, explaining it away as sound waves and brain glitches.
Right. We've solved the haunting. We've debunked it.
But if the brain is the only way we experience reality, if your brain builds the world you see, and your brain builds a ghost standing in the corner, for that moment in that specific reality, isn't the ghost real?
That is terrifying. You're saying the hallucination is just as valid as the chair I'm sitting on, because both are just models in my head.
And furthermore, if we could cure this, if we could turn off that paranoid pattern-seeking part of our brain that sees faces in the shadows, we would lose the very instinct that kept us alive for 100,000 years.
So the price of survival is the occasional ghost in the basement.
I believe so. To be human is to be haunted by our own survival instincts.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go check the filters on my furnace and maybe install a few more nightlights.
Probably a good idea.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious and maybe keep the light on.